72 hours after I closed on my new home, the president of the local homeowners association stood on my front porch and handed me a fine for $50,000. I had not even finished unpacking my moving boxes. The woman glaring at me claimed that the 5 acres of pristine, wooded land I had just legally purchased was slated for community acquisition. She told me I had illegally intercepted an association real estate transaction, and the $50,000 penalty was my punishment for buying their land before they could. She demanded that I surrender the property deed to the association immediately, or she would initiate a hostile foreclosure to seize my home. She thought she could terrify a new resident into handing over a multi-million-dollar asset. She did not know that I am a commercial real estate underwriter. I do not just read contracts. I destroy them. By the end of this story, her entire empire would collapse under the weight of her own greed. To understand how a neighborhood welcome escalated into a $50,000 extortion attempt, you need to understand the geography of my property and the psychology of the woman trying to steal it. I had recently purchased a historic farmhouse situated on exactly 5 acres of land. The property is uniquely positioned. It forms a perfect peninsula completely, surrounded on 3 sides by a wealthy gated homeowners association called Crestwood Estates. The previous owner of my farmhouse was an elderly man who fiercely guarded his privacy. When he passed away, his estate sold the property to me in a private, off-market transaction. It never touched the public multiple listing service. On my 3rd morning in the house, a woman named Evelyn marched up my driveway. Evelyn was the president of the Crestwood Estates Board of Directors. She did not offer a welcome basket. She offered a threat. She informed me that the HOA had been waiting for the previous owner to die so they could purchase the 5 acres at a discount, bulldoze the farmhouse, and build a luxury community, equestrian center. Because I bought the property privately, I had ruined her master plan. Evelyn handed me a heavily branded HOA violation notice. She cited a community bylaw regarding the right of first refusal. She claimed that anyone purchasing land within the designated Crestwood expansion zone was legally required to offer the land to the board first. Because I did not, she issued a $50,000 fine due in 14 days. She smiled coldly and stated that if the fine went unpaid, she would place a lien on my house and foreclose on it before the end of the year. Her fatal mistake was not just her breathtaking arrogance. Her fatal mistake was assuming that a private, corporate entity possesses municipal authority over sovereign land and committing federal mail fraud in the process. I operate by 3 personal rules. Rule 1, never accept a financial penalty without verifying the legal jurisdiction behind it. Rule 2, when an opponent attempts to intimidate you, investigate their hidden financial motives. Rule 3, a paper trail is a weapon, use it with surgical precision. I did not yell at Evelyn. I took the envelope, closed my front door, and went to work. I did not call a lawyer immediately. I am an underwriter. I know how to navigate the archives of the county clerk better than most attorneys. My first step was to absolutely destroy her claim of jurisdiction. I pulled the original master deed for Crestwood Estates, established in 1992. I overlaid their official boundary map with my own property survey. The results were exactly as I expected. My 5-acre parcel was explicitly severed from the surrounding development. My land predated their neighborhood by 50 years. My property is legally classified as an unannexed independent parcel. This means the homeowners association has 0 legal authority over my dirt. I am not a member of their community. I am not bound by their bylaws. Evelyn attempting to fine me for violating a community rule is the legal equivalent of a local book club trying to fine a stranger for reading the wrong novel. It is completely fictional. However, I did not just want to prove Evelyn wrong. I wanted to understand why she was so desperate to acquire my land that she was willing to fabricate a $50,000 fine. People do not risk their reputations for a community equestrian center unless there is personal profit involved. I initiated the second phase of my strategy, follow the money. I pulled the public tax records and the corporate registration filings for the Crestwood Estates Homeowners Association. Because they operate as a non-profit entity, their basic vendor relationships and board disclosures are a matter of public record. I cross-referenced the names of the board members against recent commercial real estate filings in the county. Within 4 hours, I found the anomaly. Evelyn's husband. David was the registered agent for a limited liability company called Summit Development Partners. 3 months prior to my arrival, the HOA board had quietly approved a massive community budget allocation of $2.5 million. The stated purpose of the funds was land acquisition and development of future community amenities. I dug deeper into the meeting minutes. The board had already signed a preliminary consulting and development contract for the proposed equestrian center. The contract was awarded to Summit Development Partners. Evelyn's husband. The scheme was brilliant and deeply illegal. Evelyn planned to use the millions of dollars in community reserve funds to buy my property at a low price. Then she would award the lucrative multi-million-dollar construction contract to her own husband's company, effectively funneling the neighborhood's money directly into her own bank account. My private purchase of the property had derailed a massive embezzlement operation. I now possessed everything I needed to dismantle her. But I did not take this information to the HOA board. I utilized the most powerful overlooked weapon in residential real estate. I contacted my title insurance company. When you purchase a home, you buy a title insurance policy. This policy guarantees that your ownership of the land is free and clear of outside claims. If anyone attempts to challenge your ownership or place a fraudulent lien on your property, the title insurance company is legally obligated to deploy their massive corporate legal department to defend you completely free of charge. I sent my title insurance underwriter the $50,000 fine, the threat of foreclosure, and my jurisdictional research. They do not take kindly to people threatening their insured properties. The insurance company instantly assigned a senior litigation attorney to my case. Next, I compiled my forensic research regarding Evelyn's husband and the embezzlement scheme. I submitted the entire dossier to the state attorney general's real estate fraud division. Evidence over emotion. The trap was perfectly set. Evelyn was impatient. When I did not pay the $50,000 fine within 14 days, she escalated. She called a special emergency town hall meeting for the entire Crestwood Estates community. Her goal was to publicly humiliate me and whip the neighborhood into a frenzy so they would support a legal motion to force a hostile foreclosure on my property. I attended the meeting. I did not sit in the back. I sat in the very front row. Sitting directly to my left was the senior litigation attorney provided by my title insurance company. Sitting directly to my right was an investigator from the state attorney general's office wearing a plain suit. Evelyn did not know who they were. Evelyn stood at the podium. She projected a large photograph of my farmhouse onto a screen. She spoke into the microphone, telling the audience that an outsider had stolen their future equestrian center. She demanded that the community vote to authorize immediate legal action to place a lien on my home for the unpaid $50,000 penalty. The crowd began to murmur in agreement. I stood up. I did not use a microphone. I spoke clearly and calmly across the room. I stated that my property is a legally unannexed sovereign parcel and that the homeowners association possesses absolutely zero jurisdiction over my land. I announced that the $50,000 fine was not just invalid, it constituted fraudulent extortion through the United States postal system. Evelyn laughed into the microphone. She told the room that I was delusional and that the board's authority was absolute. I nodded to the attorney sitting to my left. He stood up, handed Evelyn a thick stack of legal documents, and introduced himself. He informed her that he represented a multi-billion-dollar title insurance corporation. He stated that if the HOA attempted to place a fraudulent lien on my property, his firm would file a federal lawsuit against the association for tortious interference, and they would seek personal financial damages from every single board member individually. The room went dead silent. The other board members sitting near the podium physically leaned away from Evelyn. But I was not finished. I turned to face the audience of homeowners. I projected my voice so everyone could hear. I asked the community if they were aware that the $2.5 million of their money allocated for the equestrian center was contracted to go directly to a company owned by Evelyn's husband. Evelyn's face turned completely white. She gripped the edges of the podium. She tried to deny it, claiming it was a vicious lie. I nodded to the man sitting on my right. The state investigator stood up. He flashed his credentials to the room. He announced that the state attorney general had officially opened a criminal investigation into the board of directors for embezzlement, bid rigging, and wire fraud. He informed Evelyn that she was required to hand over all financial ledgers, emails, and bank statements immediately. The community erupted into absolute chaos. Residents began shouting at Evelyn, demanding to know where their money was. The town hall meeting dissolved into a screaming match between the homeowners and the board. Evelyn grabbed her purse and attempted to run out the back door of the clubhouse. The state investigator followed her to ensure she did not destroy any documents. I quietly walked out the front door, got into my truck, and drove back to my peaceful private 5 acres. Within 48 hours, the consequences rained down. Evelyn was forced to resign her presidency in absolute disgrace. The state attorney general froze the HOA reserve accounts to protect the remaining funds. Evelyn and her husband were formally indicted on multiple counts of corporate fraud and embezzlement. They were forced to sell their home in the neighborhood to cover their mounting legal defense fees. The remaining board members, terrified of the title insurance company, formally retracted the $50,000 fine in writing and issued a legally binding apology, permanently recognizing that my land was entirely outside their control. They abandoned the equestrian center project completely. My historic farmhouse remains untouched. The trees are quiet. I sit on my porch in the evenings entirely, surrounded by a neighborhood that now knows exactly what happens when you attempt to steal land from someone who reads the fine print. Here's the critical information you need to understand to protect your own property from predatory associations. First, an HOA relies on intimidation and the assumption that you do not know your boundaries. Just because a community surrounds your property geographically does not mean they possess legal authority over it. Always pull your original master deed and verify if your parcel is legally annexed into the subdivision. If your property is independent, HOA bylaws are completely meaningless pieces of paper. Second, never underestimate the power of your title insurance policy. Most homeowners believe title insurance only matters on the day they close on their house. This is a massive misconception. Title insurance is an active, ongoing shield. If a neighbor, an association, or a contractor attempts to place a fraudulent line on your home to extort money, your title insurance company is required to defend your ownership. Do not pay thousands of dollars to a private lawyer. Call your title underwriter. Let a massive corporate legal department fight the battle for you. Finally, whenever a board president pushes aggressively for a massive community purchase or a special assessment, follow the money. In many cases of extreme HOA overreach, the enforcement of a rule is simply a smokescreen to hide an unauthorized financial transaction. Demand transparency. Audit the vendors and never allow arrogance to replace evidence. Welcome to the channel. We do not fight HOAs. We outsmart them. Has a neighborhood association ever tried to claim authority over property you rightfully own? Tell me your story in the comments below.